All right. All right, guys, we'll get started in just a minute. In the meantime, as always, we'll introduce our presenters. I am Edgar Spinoza. For those that are new to TaxDome, those that don't know me, I'm an account executive. I've been here for 4 years. I've had the pleasure to work with so many of you, and I'm super happy always to see familiar names in the chat. This is such an amazing experience seeing you all here. And we have Fabiola as well. Fabiola, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I have been with TaxDome for about 8 months now, I believe, and it's been a great experience. TaxDome is something that I believe initially looks super complex, but once you get to know the software and you know how to manage things in the industry, it becomes really easy and powerful to manage your clients. So I'm really, really happy to be here and to help you be able to do that and manage everything that you need for your business within TaxDome. So happy to join everybody today.
Amazing.
Hello,
Thank you.
everybody. My name's Russ Hoskins. I'm a CPA here in Orlando, Florida, and we've been using TaxDome since 2021. And we started out with TaxDome primarily for portals and e-signature because it's such a great solution and easy for clients to use for that. And then shortly thereafter, we started using for pipelines and document management and many other things now, proposals. And so I'm looking forward to today. It's going to be my favorite day. We're going to talk about pipelines today. So looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm also actually very excited for today's webinar, just because I know a lot of you are here and want to look at more of the advanced features. And I know the first 2 days were more of the basic things that will help you get started when you're new. From today onward, guys, we'll be covering more advanced content. We're going to start with workflows today. We're going to cover the agenda just in a couple of seconds. Now, our agenda for today, we're going to start just quickly introducing workflows to all of you. Now, in my opinion, I think workflows is understood differently by everybody, right? And I see some guys, I see your comments here. Some people are saying that you were not able to answer the polling questions. Don't worry, you're still able to see them. The top right corner of your page, you should see polls. The ones that were open, you can still answer. Um, as far as workflows, we want you guys to understand the TaxDome method. For those of you that have used workflow management software before, you might have already in your mind a different concept of workflows, and we want to make sure everything is everybody here on the same page before we actually start creating workflows and copying templates from our library today, which is our third topic here for today is going to be creating those pipelines. We're going to copy one template from the library, and we'll discuss the entire structure of a fully, just a complete workflow from beginning to end. So that's what you can expect. After we discuss the structure of the workflow, Fabiola is going to help us out with some customization options that you can utilize to tweak the workflows that you copied from the library, and so you can then personalize them or just tailor them to your own practice. Toward the end of the session, we will do a couple of just a few testings. We will add clients to workflows. We'll play around with the automation. We'll talk about the client perspective because it's so important when you set up a workflow, right? You need to understand what happens on the client end when you use it. So we'll talk about all those different use cases from the client perspective as well. All right, let's just get right into it. Here I wanted to ask Ross just quickly before TaxDome, and I know you're a power user of workflows. Today, Ross.
Mhm.
Before TaxDome, what were you using to track your work in progress at your firm?
Sure. We were using a practice management software that um, we started with back in probably 20 years ago. And it mainly tracked projects and tasks. And, we use that for, I would say, and it was practice CS. We use that with our UltraTax product. And we've been slowly phasing that program out and over the last 3 years, and moving everything into TaxDome.
Awesome. Hey, and just quickly, Fabiola, what do you think are some of the just main things people should consider? Because you know a lot of I'm sure a lot of our audience here are probably using Excel to track all their work. You know, they have probably line items for describing projects, and they have a column for the statuses. Is there anything workflows in TaxDome do beyond just the tracking?
Yeah, I mean, not just the tracking, but you can immediately see, what team members are assigned certain items, certain tasks to complete. And we'll talk about the terminology in a little bit because I don't want to talk about terms that might be confusing now, but it just gives you a whole better visual and filtration of your hundreds and hundreds of clients that you're helping, or maybe just a handful, versus having something on Excel, right? This is a little bit more dynamic. It's a little bit more interactive, not only for you, but for your team. And it's just overall a better setup to have versus kind of like a traditional way of tracking, which is, it's nice. It's just a different way of doing it. But TaxDome is built specifically for tracking the services that you
Yeah.
offer, right?
And what I would add is with our old system, really all it did was projects and tasks. And so it did it well. Okay. But TaxDome does so much more. And it's also much more client facing. And so from right from the start to being able to send kickoff messages to clients that tax season starting, or sending organizers to clients, to sending engagement letters to clients, was just much more of an automated process. So when I tried to explain pipelines, because that's a language that as accountants, pipelines, jobs, tasks, getting that language from our old language, which was just projects and tasks, explaining that, I would say, our old system, it was just two-dimensional, projects, tasks, that was it. And in TaxDome, it's really three-dimensional because you've got so many things you can do with your jobs inside those pipelines. So those, your jobs now, which were in our old terminology projects, our jobs now, we can run through those pipelines and trigger all these automations that just the secret thing about a TaxDome that really makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah, those are great valid points, guys. One thing I wanted to highlight just really quickly is traditional workflows aren't client centric at all, right? It's all just you tracking what you do and or what the client has done, and with luck, you will not, nothing will fall through the cracks, and you will be able to keep track of everything, right? I saw a fun comment here from I think it was Jamie. Someone said, if nobody uses post-its anymore, I think all of
It
us
was
do,
James,
right?
yeah.
Yes. So I think all of us do at some point. We track things physically. Like the best use case or example I can give you is I've worked with firms that are, that in the past have tracked their work by just piling documents, different, having different piles of documents, and if something's sitting here, that means it's in progress, and if something's sitting here, that means it's delivered to the client, or so you have these different systems. The advantage of having it digital, I think, primarily is the transparency. So if you have a workflow system that is digital, first of all, you have transparency all across the board. So your team knows exactly where things are just by clicking once or twice, right? Versus having to go through a bunch of paperwork just to see what is the status of something you did 2 weeks ago. So that is one of the advantages here. And of course, going back to the client centric thing, where our workflows, for example, because we're a client portal, workflows could to some extent involve the client in them, right? So if I have a status called missing documents or this is missing information, I can let the client know with TaxDome, right? So there's a couple different things that involve the client, and that is I think one of the biggest I think value that TaxDome will provide here. Fabiola, I'm gonna turn things over to you, and guys, we'll continue answering questions in the Q&A. Don't worry. Fabiola will introduce some of the terminology to us, and then we'll go over one of the pipelines and templates together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So generally, all softwares have their own internal jargon for certain actions, right? And certain features in their software. And we want to make sure that you're familiar with the process that TaxDome uses and the terminology. So first of all, you'll notice that there's a section called workflow, right? That's the first thing that you'll see on the left-hand side of the menu. So when you click on workflow, you will see everything that is under workflow. And a workflow is the process that you will be following, right, for the services that you offer. Some of those processes don't have to necessarily be services. They can be an internal process. And that's where pipelines come along, right? So a pipeline is a process of maybe a 1040. Maybe it's an internal process that you and your team manage internally, not necessarily, client facing. So pipelines can be very, very robust. Pipelines can have 10 stages, 30 stages, or maybe only 2 stages, right? Those stages reflect each step of the way that adheres to your process, right? Whatever steps your team needs to take to complete something, it will be reflected in each stage of a pipeline. So inside of a stage, right, is a various amount of automations is what we call them. So inside of a stage, you can say something like, I want to send an email to my client, and I also need somebody in my team to review their account information, right? So those are 2 actions. One of them is sending an email, and we're automating that. And the other one is setting up a reminder, which is a task for our team members to complete something, right? And those are called tasks, right? So I'll talk about jobs in a second, but those are the basic terms, right? We have pipelines. Again, it's the process that you have with stages inside of it. Inside of these stages, you will have many automations. Some of them may include tasks. So in the tasks, these are things that your team needs to do and needs to complete. And I'll share my screen in a second to show you how that looks like. Now, essentially a job is something that requires an account, right? So remember, we uploaded our many, many accounts yesterday, and those accounts are the entities that need to go through a process, right? Whether it's a 1040 process or bookkeeping, whatever it might be. If we add one of those accounts to a pipeline that we've built, that automatically becomes a job, right? And why do we call things a job? Well, essentially that's what you do for your clients. You provide, a tax return service, you provide bookkeeping services, and essentially you're doing a job for them, right? So bookkeeping job, a tax return job, and I want to get you familiar with this because a job is different than a task, right? And you'll get more and more familiar, but I want to clarify the jargon right now. Once we start looking at the actual process of everything, it will make more sense. But I want to bring in Russ here regarding this jargon. You that were, coming over from a software that you used for 20 years and then you had to kind of taper over to a new software. Did it take you like a while to get familiar with some of these terms, Russ? Like, did your team like have difficulties and remember what something was, or how was your experience that you can share with us?
Yes, I think everybody tries to translate into how they were doing it into into the new into TaxDome, and TaxDome just you're going from you did it if a spreadsheet where you've just kind of got a list format, and now you're basically you've got 4 layers here, and so some people struggle with that. I know for a while there, in trying to explain it to staff, it was difficult for me, but I really feel like when I try to explain the pipelines now, I really say it's just the stages. It's the pipeline is is just where you're going to go to see the stages of the job. It's not the tasks of the job. It's not the job. Okay. A pipeline is just the stages. And so you could have unrelated jobs. You could have 1040 jobs with bookkeeping jobs in the same pipeline if that's what you wanted. I mean, the pipeline is just something where in your pipeline those stages can be as simple or as complex as you want to make them. That's the beauty of TaxDome is that it's you get to build your system, so you can start with the templates, but you can add on to it or take away. So you can start out with pipelines that have 3 stages or 1 stage, or it can have 20 stages. I've seen them all in between. And so but the pipeline is, just think of it as it works its way through your office from start to beginning and from start to end. It's the stages of the jobs, and then those stages, each of those stages, you can trigger. There's probably a list of 10 or 15 automations that you can do, from chats with clients to emails to setting up tasks for staff to do things. And so the pipeline is just the organizational, but it's not the actual job. It's not the actual project. The project is just what's moving through those stages. So hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. You know what? I like just look. I think the best way to understand pipelines, because I know this is these are kind of difficult concepts sometimes, guys. So the best thing you can do is try to use some like real life, or you know real life use case, or some example I can give you is imagine the whole process, the pipeline, right? Um, being a process, for example, for making and delivering a pizza, right? If so, your process of making and delivering a pizza, right? That has stages, or that has steps to make it and deliver it to your client. If you're a pizza shop, and so your stages are just the steps you follow every single time, right? But the pipeline is just the process of making it and delivering it. Stages could be something like adding toppings, or delivering it, baking it in the oven, right? So those are the steps you follow, and then the job is like that. It's like a pizza order. Like when a client calls and they order a pizza, that's a job, right? So that job will be going through the stages of making and delivering that pizza. And then, of course, a task is more of an individual to do to get the job done. For example, cutting the pizza into slices, or spreading the sauce, or adding the cheese, right? So all those different to-do items that will make the job progress through the pipeline, progress through the stages. That is what a task is. So we'll talk more, we'll give you guys more context, more use cases later. But generally, we want you to get familiar with these concepts, because we'll be using them a lot during this bootcamp. And you will, of course, have to reuse these as you set up your tax from your different workflows, as you complete your setup with us. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. You know what? I haven't heard that analogy for a pizza. It makes beautiful sense. So thank you for sharing that.
Now I'm hungry.
I'll be using, yeah, I'm hungry now, and I'll be stealing that for my onboardings, because that makes total sense, right? And I think I saw Joseph there in our Q&A, who mentioned, hey, I used to be confused about jobs versus tasks for a while, right? So yeah, it takes time to understand that about, you know, going toward, the analogy that was just mentioned by Edgar. Yeah, a job is that pizza being ordered, right? It has to go through all of the stages, and inside of stages there are going to be little tasks that need to be completed by your team, and that's generally how it works. Now, the pipeline, I always repeat this throughout my onboardings with clients. What we're doing, the pipeline is we're building your standard process, right? It's a standard process, even though we know what we need to do from beginning to end for any pipeline. We're building out a standard process. So if you can imagine adding, hiring somebody today, they can take a look at your pipeline, and everything is pretty much laid out and clear, because we standardize it. So that's the goal at the end of the day, to standardize a process so that you can have tasks standardized inside of your pipeline, and your jobs, which are your clients, go through these pipelines in the smoothest way possible, right? So what I'm going to do now is start sharing my screen so everybody can see. Give just a little bit of a better view here. All right, everybody. So, we talked about the terminology just now, but again, we have our workflow section on the left-hand side. Once we click on that, we have all of these sections that we have neatly organized, right? We're starting with tasks. So if there's ever a task that is assigned to me, you will see something like this here, which is a little number 1. It might be 2, 3. I might have 40 tasks that are assigned to me and need completing, right? So most of these sections, because you'll see tasks, jobs, you'll see something called job recurrences on all these other items, you will notice that there's always going to be a filter that you can use, right? And a search function. So if you can imagine having a million tasks assigned to you, you can quickly use a filter to filter them by who they were assigned to, or just even just keywords. Something really neat that as a big, small firm will be utilizing very, very much. So a task, again, I'm gonna give you the rundown. A task is something for you and your team. You and your team need to complete tasks in order to move forward with the pipeline. But a task can also be an independently created item, by the way. So you can create a task and this form will pop out for you. Okay. And the first thing you'll see is accounts. So if I want to create a task around one of my accounts, then I can select it, but it's not needed if you don't need to reference it. You can remind yourself to like buy coffee for the office tomorrow, right? And then you can give yourself a little bit of a reminder for that, or just generally is internal reminders for yourself. So they can work as a standalone item, and they will be useful inside of pipeline when you standardize a process. That's why we actually have templates. A template, what it will do, and we'll talk about templates a little bit more later on. Like if I select this template, for example, the form will fill out for me, right? The titles and maybe who it's assigned to will fill out for me. If I choose some of these other ones, some of the priorities will change and some of the tags will change and maybe the due dates. So templates are going to be really, really useful. But as for the example sake here, you can create a task to remind yourself about something, or maybe tell your teammate to update the address on somebody's account. And you just assign it to them, right? Notice that I have a lot of team members here, and if I want to assign Edgar something, then I will do it. He will get a little number 1 on his task saying, hey, you have a pending item. Russ, can you tell me if you have used tasks? I know you use them in a
Oh yeah.
pipeline, which, again, we'll talk about a little bit later, but have you used tasks to like remind yourself or your team about something that doesn't necessarily involve an account?
Sure. So where we'll use tasks is we'll, like if I've got something like a one-off, I want to renew my, say I want to renew my P10 and I want to put that on there between now and the end of the year. I can put that on there as a one-off, and so. But typically, if it's related to a job, we wouldn't create it here. We would, of course, create it as part of the pipeline.
That's right.
But yes, we'll use it for some maybe typically for an admin type of thing that I might want to create a few things that maybe recur every couple weeks or something like that. So I have a few that will be like that.
Perfect. I love that, when you do one-off tasks, just like a quick thing that you need to remind your team about, you can actually, where is it here? Yeah, repeat it. There's a section called repeat, right? So when you toggle that on, you can have that happen once a week. If one of your admins needs to be reminded about something that needs to be completed once a week, if there's a report that needs to be generated once a week, you could definitely have things repeat on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly basis, a yearly basis. So these tasks, again, are internal. They're only for you and your team to complete. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to go from top to bottom in filling this out. I want ABC Business. I want Edgar to update their address because the client just called me, right? And I wrote down the address really quick, but I don't have time to do this updating. I'm just going to tell Edgar to do it. So I'm just going to tell them to update the address here, the Elm Street, something like that, right? So we added the business here. I don't need to select a job because that's not what we're focusing on right now, nor do I need a template because I am doing a one-time task. I selected Edgar because he needs to complete this. The priority is, I'll do like medium. I mean, it's not super urgent, but I do need him to finish it as soon as possible. The task name is self-explanatory. And the status here, you can set this up as whatever you'd like. These are standard statuses that you cannot change, but they are standardized here, right? The goal is for Edgar to hit complete, right? Right now, I'll leave it as planned because that's what it is. This task is planned so that he can update the address. In the description section, this is where you add all the instructions that you need. And we have ways of doing, if you want to do bullet points or if you want to add links or want to add emojis, by all means, feel free to manipulate this, right? If you want to make them large letters and bold, we have the ability to do that. We can categorize, remember, we can categorize a lot of things with tags, not just our accounts. We talked about tags and importing yesterday, and we tagged a lot of our accounts that we integrated into TaxDome that we imported, but you can also use tasks to tag your to-do lists, right? So I'm going to actually remove some of these and let's see if I can use a different tag. Maybe this account is my platinum account, and I want to make sure that Edgar knows that this is important, right? That's why I made it a medium priority. Later on, I could change it to high if it's important. And then here we go. We're going to make this, we're going to start it today. I want it to be due by Friday. Hopefully he does finish this by Friday. I'm not going to repeat it because it's just a one-off thing. If I need to add any attachments for referencing, you can do that. We also have subtasks. Subtasks are things that you can add for additional reference. If there's like a lot of steps that my team member needs to do, you can add them here. These subtasks are great for standardizing a process, maybe inside of your pipeline, right? I'll leave these for example now.
Yeah, so it might be, update address in your tax software, update address
Exactly.
in your practice in TaxDome, update address in all the various places you need to do that in. And so it's nice here so that you can, and then they've checked it off and you can come back and easily look at their tasks to see it. Yes, they checked off that they completed each of the subtasks. Very, very nice feature.
Oh, now,
Yeah.
one quick highlight as well, Fabiola, is somebody was Erica was asking here in the chat about reminders. So what happens when you create a task and you assign it to somebody, right? Now, when you create a task and you assign it, like Fabiola is assigning it to me, as soon as she does that, I will get a notification. And I, as a team member, I decide how those notifications get sent to me. So I can either opt in to receive an email. Okay, I can get an email saying, Edgar, you've been assigned a new task name, update address for client ABC, right? Or I can get an inbox notification in my own user account with TaxDome. So an email gets sent, and the repeat option is for that task to basically recur. And every time it recurs or it repeats, your team member is going to get a notification. So if there's something you need the team member to do on a recurring basis every month or every quarter, every year, you can make that task repeat, and the team member is going to get a to-do list item added to their list, and they will also get an email saying you have been assigned a new task, right? So that's how the reminders work on the team member end, because these are all internal to-dos. We'll talk about client tasks in a moment. So Dave, you were asking about that. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but these are all internal.
Right. Yep, exactly. So if I hit create task, it will take us to the account itself, right? And notice we have these tabs for the account, and we'll see a workflow tab with information if this account is going through a pipeline or if they have a task that's pending associated with this account, it will be visible here. Right now, there's only one task, right? So going back to my workflow, I am going to see, tasks that were assigned to me. But if I click on all tasks, I can see everybody, right? Everybody in my team. And notice that a lot of people in my team have tasks assigned to them, right? So right now I'm going to see what is assigned to Edgar. So let's see. So quickly filter because I have a lot of team members, right? And here's the one that I assigned to him. So let's say Edgar is absent today because he's sick. I can reassign it on the fly to me and then remove his name. And there we go. It'll disappear because it's no longer part of Edgar because I have a filter. Once I go back to mine, you'll see that, where did it go? Did I change the wrong one? Let's see. Oops. So update address, looks like I didn't click on my name. There you go. Now it's assigned to me and I can go back here and here it is. And I did a search, right? So you can always do keywords as well if you need to search some of the tasks that you issued. So now that I have this task, my goal here is to hit complete, right? Imagine that I did do everything. I open up the task and I'm like, wow, I have a few things that I need to do. I already did this. I already did this. I'm going to change the status to complete because I am done. So I click on status, I hit complete and save. And there we go. It will disappear because I no longer have anything to do, right? It's a to-do list that I checked off, but I can see it under complete and I can see that this was done. If I hit complete by mistake, I could make it active again by choosing any of these statuses and it'll go back to my pending items. But it's nice that you'll be able to click on the three dots on the right. You could do an audit trail to see who was it originally, assigned to, who hit complete, what happened with this specific task, right? Notice at the bottom it was initially for Edgar, and then we changed the assignee to me, and then we completed it, so on and so forth. So this is really nice to visualize when you have tasks and you kind of need to do an audit trail for some of them to know exactly what happened. But this is generally how tasks work, everybody. The goal is for you to complete the tasks so that, you finish whatever you need to do, whether it's inside of a pipeline or it's just a one-off task, right? So I hope that was clear, everybody. I'm going to pause here and go to the Q&A. Or if you saw any interesting questions there, Edgar and Russ, that you want to bring up, by all means, because I love to have clarity on tasks because there's something that everybody's going to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. So there's two that I saw and I wanted to kind of to bring up here and
Sure.
discuss. The first one was from so I don't know why, but it just I think it just disappeared. So somebody was asking if tasks are basically a to-do list. The answer is yes. So on a day-to-day basis, you'll be either looking at the projects that you're assigned to, right? So as a team member as a team member of your firm, I will probably want to start my day by looking at what my to-do list is for the day, or maybe I want to look at what are the tasks that are closer to their deadline, or I want to look at jobs that are approaching the deadline as well. So there are multiple places you can see the tasks, but essentially this view that we're looking at right now is a to-do list. Every task has its own little file, right? So I can click the task, click one of these tasks, and the task itself is a place where you can collaborate with your team. So here, we have a description for it. We have Maybe even we can, we can link files to it. We can have a sub list of or subset of to-do items that are linked with the task, right? We can tag our team members and tell them something that, maybe we need somebody's help, or it needs to be reassigned to somebody. We need to record something that happened that is directly linked to the task. So it is a to-do list, but each item on that to-do list is a mini file, right? You can just collaborate. You can add more things to it. I hope that makes sense. The second thing was that I wanted to point out was somebody was asking Russell if you keep track or you record your interactions that you have with clients over the phone. Russ, are you making any notes for that? How are you handling, or your team's handling, conversations with clients at the moment?
Well, we'll use the note feature that's within TaxDome under client notes, and if we need to have other staff be aware of that phone call, we'll at them in the notes so that they will get copy of that. So anytime I take a phone call or we have staff take a phone call, we're gonna take notes here, and then we can at the staff. So instead of just typing up an email and then sending someone an email that then maybe that email hopefully gets printed into the work papers, this will definitely be in the client's account. And so we're really encouraging the use of client notes to track important calls or questions. And then if it requires us to do something, then we are creating a task. If it's a one-off task, maybe they need a copy of a tax return or something like that, so we might create a one-off task for that. But if it has to do, say, with they've got a question on their 1040, then we'll make a job note, and there's a place under the 1040 job notes where you can make job comments, and we'll add the partner on the job that may be hey, this client called, and then we can just put at Russ Hoskins, hey, this client called about the status of their return. And then I'll get an email, but then it's also in the job card. And it's letting me know that, and it's date stamped. And so I know exactly when the client called, and it's on the job card, and anybody else on the job will see that as well. So that's kind of where we've got a couple different places. So as we, kind of go through and look at the job card and see that, we'll show you guys, how you can make notes, and as well as, and you can also attach those same notes to your job card. So, they're really, integrated together. So there's multiple places we track through those things.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Russ. And I'll, just want to highlight also what Angela said in the Q&A, that when the phone call, or when there is an action item that that was brought up during that phone call, or that was created based off of that interaction, you can use the task and then email, assign it to somebody in your team, and then email that person, make him aware of what just happened, right? What that interaction was about. Create a new task here for me, Fabiola, so you can see. Somebody asked also, where do you find the tasks? All the tasks are within the workflow section. You'll see on the sidebar. Okay, there's a tasks section over there, and then you will typically either have a template for the task. So if you create tasks for workflow on a recurring basis, you may want to have a template for that. You may also want to have a tag, so you can tag those different tasks and then find them easily. If you search phone there, I think I created a phone call tag at some point. But the purpose of doing that is keeping everything in a single place, right? You want to keep track of all those things that happened, and you can either do it as a note if it's just an interaction with no action item, or you can do a task if there is something actionable that somebody needs to complete after that interaction.
Yeah. A couple things I would point out on the task screen, if we can exit out of this task we're creating here, Fabiola, is this same screen, the task screen, has a gear icon. Okay, and you can reorder your columns here again. So like a lot of the screens in TaxDome. So for us, we drag up the pipeline job name. So we like to have the pipeline right there. We drag that up, and we hit apply. I'm going to show everybody why. And then when we name our jobs, okay, we actually, when you name your jobs, you can use client variables. And we use the client name in our job name. So we would name that job And the reason why we do that is so that then we can, when we're in our task view, we can sort by account name. Because right now you can't sort by the account column, okay? But you can sort by the job column. So when you're creating your jobs for the first time, take that into account. I'm sure we'll get a sort by account column someday because this is constantly being improved. But right now you can only sort by a few columns in your task list. So if you want to be able to come in here and sort by a name, you really want to put your account, you want to put your customer name, your account name in the job title. So we'll go through that when we're creating a job. You've got variables that you can have. So you can say 2024 1040 return, or you can say 2024 tax return, whatever you want to say the job is. But you can also then put, the client's name in there. So you can put 2024 Gators Grill. And so right now we're naming and we're putting our client names in our jobs so that we can sort on this screen. And the other thing we're doing here is we're also tagging all of our tasks. And that's another nice thing. So then when I want to go look at my task list, which I might, if I have 100 tasks, 150 tasks, I want to be able to say, show me just my 1040 tagged task. And so all of our pipelines, all of our tasks that have to do with 1040, all of our templates are set up to automatically apply the 1040 tag. So now I can go to my task list, and even though it's 150 long, I can say, just show me my 1040 tasks. And I filter down just to that. And now I've got just a couple, or hopefully, and then I can focus those and get those out the door today. So there's, and you can reorder and put the tag column over there like she did. And so it's really flexible here. But there are still a couple tricks. And I think that's one of our tricks that we worked out. You could also put the account name in the task name. Okay, that's one of your options. Okay, we toyed around with that back and forth. Do we put and we decided. And there's some other reasons why we decided this. We decided we don't want the account name in the task name. It makes it too long. And we decided there for some other reasons in the program, because you get notifications via email, that we needed the account name in the job name, and because of the way the notifications come through email and stuff, that it also helps you there as well. So just keep that in mind.
It's a great addition there. Thank you, Russ. We'll definitely walk through how you can make sure your jobs have the name of the client included within it, so that you guys can sort by job names. And not only here, but in the jobs list, you'll be able to do the same, right? So that's a great addition there. Thank you, Russ.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Now that we kind of like took a look of the functionality of tasks and how they work, I do want to talk about jobs here. We'll create a job a little bit later on, right? But same thing, you'll have a list here of your jobs and, the account that they belong to and who's assigned to the job, right? Because a task can have an assignee as well, but so can a job. A job has somebody that's assigned to it that takes care of the whole job from beginning to end, right? So I also want everybody to have clarity on assignees. Who is assigned? Somebody in your team, right? If you have more than one license, then that's where you can assign things to your license or your teammate's license, and get things distributed and not have everything fall on only one person, right? So there will be a little bit more clarity on that once a pipeline is built out. But I won't focus too much on filling out the job form now, because we'll do that a little bit later. But same thing like tasks, you'll have a nice list, be able to edit, be able to filter, just like tasks. Job recurrences, I'm just going to briefly touch upon them. Job recurrences is something that you can program to happen in the future. If you want a job to repeat maybe on a monthly basis, kind of like the tasks, right? If you want something to repeat on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, you can have jobs be generated once a month, maybe for your bookkeeping. scenarios, right? I had a client who said, you know what, I want my clients to go through my bookkeeping pipeline every 5th of the month. That's when I need some statements. So you can create a recurrence that says, make it happen every month. In this case, here's an example. The next recurrence would be December 1st, and it happens every month. The next one would be January 1st, February 1st, right? They'll go through a very specific pipeline that you choose on a monthly basis, right? I'm not going to hyper focus on this today, but just know that you can program things to happen in the future, right? Or reminders that need to happen in the future. This is the best way to do it. Now, before we focus on the pipeline, I want to show you this calendar view. It's pretty much showing you the same thing that you're seeing in a list here. It's just broadcasting it in a calendar view. Notice that you can filter between tasks and jobs. I love this view because you can filter it as well. And my brain likes to have a calendar because it kind of gives me a notion of time, like, oh, I need to finish this by Friday, or this is due by this date, right? And you, again, if you have a big team, you filter it by assignee, filter it by due date. This is great. Russ, do you use this calendar view for any of this
Yes, I'm
work
with
that you do?
you. Because you can look at it either the Kanban view, you can look at it the job view, or you can look at it this view. I like the calendar view as well. So I'll check off the show due date only box because and I tend to check on the tasks box only up top in the center there. Yeah, and I tend to work this way quite a bit. I will work and have the other. I'll have my task list open and the job list open in a separate tab. But I do like this and like to see my jobs here, see how many 1040s I've got on me or corps I've got on me to review, and so I really like this screen.
Yeah, I love it as well. Like, I mean, even if the thing pops up here like, oh, due Friday, I think I'm going to be able to finish it a different day. So you can change the due date to maybe next Friday. And that way it'll change for you. Now you know that you moved it along, right? So remember, things are so flexible in TaxDome. You can change due dates, change, have visuals in different ways so that it just things work for you.
Yeah, and you can quickly get to the job card here too. So if you click, well, go back to the task, and I'll walk you through what I'm saying. If you click on the task, and then in the top there where it says tax prep pipeline, just right click that, and you can open that in a separate window, and then that's going to be your job card. You're on this, so you can quickly get into the pipeline for this. So, and it'll take you right into the job card. Okay, so by working in that screen, now we just opened the Kanban view, but the actual job card on it. So it's a quick launch into this screen versus going here, paging and finding it. You
Right.
can quickly get it this way as well. So that nice little hyperlink there I use in my
Very
own way,
nice.
the way I work in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. I think everything that you share, Russ, is valuable. So everybody in the audience is probably like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense, right? Because we can always describe to you how to use the software, but when you have somebody like Russ come in and give his, real way of working, it just makes sometimes a lot more sense to everybody, right? So going into pipelines, we're going to take a look at, what Russ mentioned earlier, job card. We've heard that term many times, like, what the heck's a job card? We will get to that in a second, but I will right now pass the mic over to Edgar because he's going to talk about, you know, where do we get pipelines from, right? Do I have to buy them? Or where do I copy them from, right? So we'll get to that, and we'll talk about templates, and then we'll jump back into the pipeline view and talk about job cards, because we know what a job is, but what is a job card, right? We'll talk about all of those details in a sec. So let's go ahead and give the mic over to Edgar so he can share with us all his knowledge about how to copy over a pipeline, how do the templates work, and how you can get, the most out of that. So go ahead, take it away, Edgar.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, guys. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen with you a couple of seconds. Let me go back to the slides and let's get right into this. So first of all, if from here on, I'd like you all to try to follow along because I will, would in 2 or 3 minutes we will get to a process. We'll show you a pipeline which is built completely, okay, from beginning to end, and we'll go over all the stages and what what the automation or the items are in each of those stages of that process, right? I want you all to have that process in your own personal library. Now, before copying it, there's two places in TaxDome where you can get templates, or you have basically a library, right, where you can copy items and put them in your own personal library. Now I'm going to pin this menu here on the side. If you go to the templates option, your first tab is the marketplace, which it basically serves a very similar purpose as if it was the App Store or the Play Store on a phone, right? But it is specifically designed for TaxDome templates. So here we have a wide array of ready-made templates created by experts in the industry like Russell. Okay, and these templates cover various aspects and areas of the software, such as we have workflows, we have of course pipelines, organizers, engagement letters, etc. So if you are looking for ready-made content built by professionals like you, then the marketplace is a great place where you can get that content from. Now, most of these templates you're going to see in the at least the pipelines, organizers. We have also some proposals and engagement letters. We TaxDome. We also put out content here for complete for free. But you, as a TaxDome user, right, you can become a creator in this marketplace, and you can add your templates here for a price. So you'll find some paid content, all right, and each of these have their description, so you can click them. All right, just review what's in it. You'll see if the creator, sorry, let me go back here, so to the marketplace. If you guys look at some of the templates, for example here, some of these templates will have, let me refresh, 1 second, guys. My audio is okay. Just want to make sure, Fabiola.
Yeah.
I think internet connection is unstable here. All right, let me go back. All right, I'll go back here to firm templates. Awesome, guys. So back to the marketplace. So within the marketplace, you'll find two types of content. One of them is some of them will free, and so I strongly encourage you to look at all the tabs you're going to find there in the marketplace, and then just browse through and see if there's anything you can take advantage of. Especially look at templates for example, pipelines. So yeah, I saw someone was asking if there's any templates which you can just copy into your own library. Marketplace is a great option. For purposes of today's webinar, we will be using one specific template that is not currently in the marketplace. So if you can follow along now, go to the firm templates section. Actually, sorry, we're going to be copying a pipeline. So go to the pipelines section right underneath firm templates. For this bootcamp, we created one specific pipeline called Bootcamp 2024 Tax Preparation. So within the pipelines menu, you'll see this button, Copy from Library. We want you to click that, okay? And this is then going to have a full list of different templates we have. You're going to find the template that we created for this webinar named as Bootcamp 2024 Tax Preparation. Please copy it into your own library by clicking the button to the right of the template. So click here, the button on the right hand side of the screen. All right, and once you click it, the template's going to go into your own personal library of pipelines. So if you have done that successfully, right, again, we're in the templates menu, pipelines. We clicked the copy from library button, and then we're going to click the button to the right of Bootcamp 2024 tax preparation. All right, guys, we're We're going to go to pipelines now because the next screen you're going to see is something similar to this. You will have the pipeline that you copied within your personal library, and I want you to go click it, right? If the screen you got is different than this, okay, you may have a button that says here on the right hand side, go to pipeline. Click that button. If you don't see this yet, you might be in the back end of the pipeline, in the back end of the process. Click the go to pipeline button, and that's going to take you to the front end of the actual process. So I'm going to hit give me 1 second. 1 second, guys. All right, just want to get a confirmation from the team that we're able to copy the pipeline at least, guys. And again, if you have not copied the template, ask our Q&A team. You're going to find it in the firm templates, for the pipeline templates library. Our team is going to make sure you put it in the Q&A if you didn't get the chance to copy it. Our team's going to give you instructions on how to get it. Now, let's go back to a little bit back to the terminology of this, all that we've been talking about, what exactly it looks like in the system. Now, we've been talking about what a pipeline is. When we talk about a pipeline, we're just talking about a process, right? And this is one of those processes. The process has stages like intake, reviewing documents, missing info, preparation, review, and it has also an ending, right? So these here are what make that process, what make that workflow, and these are what we call stages in our process. Now, you may not have anything right now in your process. You may not have what I'm dragging and moving around here. No problem. This is what we call a job card. And later, Fabio's going to walk us through the process of actually adding these job cards into a pipeline and kind of moving them around and tracking them. But essentially, these are instances of work that you'll be completing for a client. So if my process is tax preparation and my stage, my first stage is intake or get documents from client, then the job card will be that project that I will be completing for that client. So in this instance, I'm doing ABCD businesses 2022 tax return, and it's currently sitting at the intake stage where not only this is tracking the job for me, it's not just telling me the status of this job, but it's also telling me what happens when the job enters the stage called intake. Now, I'm gonna take a quick pause here just to go look at the Q&A. Fabio, do we have any Q&A pending here that we should address?
Well, there was something that it's actually fairly common. Is there a way to preview a template before copying it to the library?
Okay, guys. Now, if you're looking at the templates library here within firm templates, your answer is going to be no. Within the marketplace, though, and I think some users may be experiencing some issues there. But when within the marketplace, the creators have the ability to give you guys just a quick glance at what the content consists of. So there's some videos. You might also want to look at our YouTube library because I know some of our templates have video content. And if you just want to ask our team, what are some of the best templates you can copy because you're looking for something specific, I also highlight you can also just ask us, right? If you have been looking for a specific piece of content, maybe an engagement letter specific for taxes or something specific, workflow specific to your market, maybe you're in a different country, definitely go ask our team and we can help you find the content that is gonna, if it's there, we're gonna help you find it, no problem. And then again, the marketplace is going to be your best option for looking at videos or just images of what that template consists of.
Right, exactly. And generally, if you're not looking at the marketplace, because that's, Edgar's talking about the marketplace specifically, where you can get small previews. But if you're looking at the free library that TaxDome offers, right? Because you don't even need to look at the marketplace if you don't want to. Just use our free library. No, you cannot preview it, but you can just copy it over, open it up, take a look at the stages, and you're like, this is not for me. You can go and delete that pipeline if you don't feel it's fit for you and your team. Really simple. Like, if just delete it, right? Now, when you copy over a pipeline, it will copy over everything in its entirety, meaning if there's task templates that are associated with this pipeline, you will see it under task templates. If there's engagement letters that are associated with the pipeline, you will now see a engagement letter in your templates. Will see an organizer form in your templates that you're like, I didn't create that. Well, you kind of did when you copied over a pipeline, right? So don't be surprised if you see things that weren't there before. It's just something that's complete when you copy over a pipeline. So I just wanted to give you that side note because you can still preview it, just, do it live. Look at the whole thing and then just delete it if you feel that it's not fit.
Awesome. There's a couple of questions for us. We'll go over those questions, guys, once we finish explaining the pipeline structure. I'm sure Russ will be glad to explain how he actually uses these in his daily work activities. Now, the first thing I wanted to explain when you're looking at a pipeline is each of the stages is basically one of the steps of the process that you can configure separately, right? So let's take, for example, intake, right? Intake, right underneath the title of the stage or the title of the step that you're completing, you have this lightning bolt icon, and mine has a number 6 in it. If you copy the template, you should have the number 6 here as well. When you click that number 6, you'll see what automations the stage is triggering when a job enters it. So, for example, if I add a client to the stage because maybe a client called and they want me to complete their 2024, 2023 returns, I will likely add a job for the client so I can start tracking all the progress I've done with it, right? And when I add a job, the system will want to automate something with client. In here specifically, I added 3 potential organizer templates that could be used for the client that enters the stage. Now, my organizer templates are all specific to certain segments of clients, to certain categories of clients. So here within the, if I take, for example, the first automation here, create organizer, mine is specific to S Corps. So when I add an S Corp client to this pipeline, they will get an S Corp specific questionnaire, right? Similar to what I'm doing here in the proposal section, because I may have different proposal or engagement letters, templates, for those different types of clients. So here I'm utilizing a concept called conditional automation.
So as
But
long as they have that tag, they are going to, when you create the job, for that account. So if it's a 1040 account, if it's an individual account and you create a 1040 account and give them this job and assign the job to this pipeline, it's going to create this organizer. And if it's an 1120, it'll do the 1120 S organizer if you give it the 1120S tag again. So that's why the tagging is so important, that we did yesterday during the import.
Exactly. So this is exactly what Russ said, right? It's one of the reasons we're stressing the importance of tagging your clients at least by the type of entity that they are, because in the workflows you may do things differently for somebody who is an S Corp. Maybe you like we were saying, right? Maybe they get a different engagement letter or a different questionnaire, or maybe they are assigned to a different person in your team, right?
And one of our practices is before this intake stage, we have a stage. It's an initial stage that we do that we don't have any automations there that go to the outside, go to clients. That our initial opening stage is a stage that what we're going to do is we're going to be updating account. We're going to be using automations to update account access. Where we're assigning staff. We're going to be doing automations where we, we're going to have. We're also going. That's the stage where, because we're going to be adding. Those clients are all now created. All of our accounts now will, for next year, the pipelines, the 2024 returns will be created now. So we don't want to send out organizers now, but then we can do our budgeting. And so they're going to sit in this initial stage here for 4 or 5 weeks, and then that way we've got time to do our staff assignments. We've got time to do our budgeting using the new budgeting features. And so they'll sit in that initial stage, and then we'll move them all together over into that stage that where Edgar's showing the organizers and the kickoff. So you and I see that in a lot of when I look through the marketplace and I look through some of the other pipelines. I think that's very common to see an initial stage for tax returns that really kind of is a holding. I would call it a holding stage where you're maybe doing some admin things before you actually start doing your kickoff communications and your engagement letters, your organizers, those type things.
Excellent. And so yeah, just backing up a little bit here. This is one of the, this is what Russ was talking about, and this is what actually, guys, we want you to actually do by the end of this bootcamp. Right now, we're providing you this template, Bootcamp 2024 tax preparation, which, to which you can actually add more stages if you like, or remove some of the stages. So just like Ross said, maybe you want to have a holding stage so that you can do your budgeting. Maybe you can get your assignments done. Maybe some specific clients have a specific assignees, right? And then based off, right after that, you may have like Russ said, Russ, you do like a kickoff communication. What is that? An email that gets sent to your clients?
Well, in our first year or two, the kickoff communication, we actually did both an email and we did a chat. So we sent out, this, and it was the same communication, but basically we wanted it both as in TaxDome as a chat and also as an email. Now we just do it as a chat because we've got about 90% of our clients that will use the chat, and then because we enable our clients to read the chats, a chat is still going to them as an email. And we enable them to be able to read the chat from their email. So all of them get it as an email, basically. So we just don't do it as an email any longer, so that we don't, give them too many. That was probably our only complaint, was we were giving them too many communications from TaxDome. So we did scale back and just do chats our second year.
Yeah,
I think Edgar, I don't know if everybody caught that, but he was, because it changed. He was switching between, he's got two 1040, or he's got two tax pipelines in here, and he's switching between them. So when he does switch between them, I think if you go back and watch the replay, you can, or screenshot, this pipeline here is pretty close to the pipeline that we use. And we will constantly, the beauty of TaxDome, I think, if you ask anybody that's been using the program for a few years, is you can constantly changing your pipelines and upgrading them. But this is very similar to what we really, it's pretty close to what you're using right now, if not identical. So
exactly. And so just back, step back a little bit, guys, to just one thing, because I know I was looking at the Q&A. I saw a lot of you were asking where you can find this template. Okay, now once again, the templates are going to be within the templates menu to the left side of your screen. Okay, so go to the sidebar, templates, pipelines is one of the options. So go to the pipelines option and then copy from library. That's what you want to do. Within the library is where you're going to find the Bootcamp 2024 tax preparation pipeline. This is all we want you to copy for today. Tomorrow we can talk about more templates perhaps. But today, again, for purposes of this webinar, we'll stick to just talking about the tax preparation Bootcamp 2024 pipeline. So copy that from the library to your own list today, if you can do that.
Can you show Edgar what do they need to click on to copy it to the library?
Yes. Let me go back here once more. To copy the pipeline, guys, you have a button to the right of the item. So if you're looking at this one, click the button here. Those overlapping
those squares.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to put the pipeline into your library. When it gets copied, you'll get either to this page here. So let me go back to my pipelines. Either you get to this page here, or you actually get directed to the back end of the process. If your screen looks like this, okay, you want to click the go to pipeline option, so you can actually go to the front end of the process, because each pipeline, each workflow has two basically two views. You can view the configuration of it, then you can view the front end where you actually look at the jobs and the clients that are kind of flowing through it, right? Now, we were just talking a little bit about what the pipeline configuration does, and what we were saying was that each stage of the process is configured to do something specific for you, right? So, for example, my intake stage is automatically sending to all clients who enter it, to all clients that go in, it automatically will send a questionnaire and it will send an engagement letter based off of which type of client it is. So if it's a 1040, it will send a 1040 questionnaire and a 1040 engagement letter. But you can also configure it to do whatever you like. I've seen some people send welcome emails that depend on who the client is. Maybe you want to send specific, introductory emails, depending on whether the client is a new client or is a returning client. You can utilize the concept of conditional automation, and don't worry, we will talk about how to actually create it, how to actually configure it on tomorrow's session when we actually look at more, the configuration side of things more. Right now, we're going to continue talking about the stages, but for tomorrow, we'll talk about two things that are going to be key to basically tweaking the process and creating your very own version of this tax preparation workflows. Um, One thing that I saw in the Q&A, Ross, if you can give us a little bit of feedback on this, was some people look at pipelines and they want to make them specific to a certain type of return preparation. So, for instance, some like having a 1040 tax preparation specific process, and another one for 1120s and so on. What is your feedback on this?
Sure. But before I do that, one of the things I would recommend to everyone is in your database is set yourself up a sample client. Okay. And that way with a personal email and a sample portal, so that when you're doing this and you can set up a sample job, like we're working on a sample company here, ABCD, so that you can also do a sample company and set up a sample job in your database. And in that way, you can see these organizers go out and we do that when we're doing our pipelines and testing them. We're constantly sending tests to our sample client of each organizer, and then we'll retag it to an 1120s and take it through our pipeline to make sure that we've got all our automation set up properly. As far as the question on whether we use a separate pipeline, say for our 1040s, and a separate pipeline for our business returns. Unfortunately, we've not combined yet to one pipeline for all of our tax. We are still using separate pipelines for our 1040s, as well as our each of our business returns. I think we're going to combine, and the beauty of TaxDome is it's so easy to move a job between pipelines. So, Edgar's got two tax pipelines right now. He could easily take he's got a bunch of tax jobs in his other tax pipeline. He can easily go grab one of the 10 of those, or because he can bulk do it. He could grab all of those other tax jobs and move them all into stage one. And move them into this pipeline. So that's the thing. If tomorrow I decided I wanted to combine my pipelines and move all my clients into one pipeline, I could do that. I'd have to set up my automations. I'd have to set up. But that's the thing. It's really a personal preference of what you want to do, whether you want to have separate pipelines or one pipeline. But I wouldn't get hung up in that decision. You can change it, and you can, because if you've tagged all your clients, you can always filter your lists. So if you've started out with one big pipeline and you decide you want to go to separate pipelines, you can easily do that in bulk. And the same thing if you've started out like me. And so I think both work, both that you can get the data out of them. So I don't get hung up in that decision. For me, it really doesn't matter.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that feedback, guys. All right, and our team's going to continue answering questions in the Q&A. I see a couple of you asking about, some best practices. We'll try to cover those toward the end of the bootcamp as well. Now, the one more thing about these job cards, right? Because I was just talking about how these represent a an instance of of work that you're completing for a client. So if you are doing, essentially each return that you're doing, right, it's going to become a job in your pipeline. And that job is going to be progressing through the stages as work is completed, either by you or the client. In my particular intake stage, the client is assigned two action items, one questionnaire, one engagement letter. Now, somebody was saying, how do you do it so that the clients know that they have to submit the questionnaire, or they have to complete, hit sign on the engagement letter? I think you do that with some slight client education. Some people do prepare clients way before tax season by telling them, hey, clients, I am using this new tool next year. This is what you can expect. So there's different strategies, right? But the thing is, the client is going to be assigned a to-do item, and because the stage is going to be tracking whether or not that item is being completed, the same system could also be sending your clients reminders. So if you can, this pipeline here is actually configured so the clients get reminders if they don't complete the action item or the questionnaires in 3 days, right? So if the client's been sitting here 3 days, they'll get one email reminder saying, hey, client still didn't do this. Click here to sign the engagement, or click here to complete your questionnaire. So those are some of the automations that this workflow is going to be taking care of for you guys. Now, when the client completes both the engagement letter and the questionnaire, the job card is going to move automatically to the next stage, thus triggering the next automation in the next, this is the second stage, review documents. Where, for example, if I click my lightning bolt here, what happens is somebody in our team gets a notification by email saying, we have received an initial batch of documents, or you've been assigned a new task. That they'll see the name of the task there, right? They'll have direct access to just basically, they'll basically know that the clients by at that point will have completed both their engagement letter and questionnaires. So at least there's something they have to review there. That's why I call it review documents. And that's where the whoever is reviewing that will then determine whether or not they're missing something. And that's why also the next two stages are what we call conditional. So these stages will not apply automatically to all the clients. Somebody has to either apply a tag saying that the client is missing documents, or they have to just move the job card into those stages so that so those stay up to date. But the next stages here are basically doing something similar. I created a task called chase client for missing information. All right, this is a manual to do item getting assigned to someone in my team. That happens on the third stage. And then the fourth stage is doing something similar, but it is actually updating the client tag. So it's making sure, it is actually updating by removing the tag that was applied by the preparer. So if I'm missing documents from this client in particular, and I notice that, something I can do is I can go here, click the job card, and then here apply the tag missing documents, right? So here is something I would be doing. I can also move the client to missing information if I want. Save and exit. I'm just gonna hit move here so we can see what happens. And now the client's being tagged with missing documents. And the next stage is automating the removal of that tag that I applied, so that we no longer see that client in that segment that was categorizing them as a missing documents type client. Right. All right. Well,
And quick question that I had somebody here in the audience ask: can the client move something like in the stage? Do they have visibility on this?
No.
Good question. Russ, did you want to say it?
No, they don't.
They don't see it, guys. This is all internal tracking. We have there are a couple things you can do to keep the client in the loop, right? Because some of the automation items that you can add to your stages is, okay, when the client reaches the review document stage, I can automate an email saying, hey, Edgar, thank you for completing your questionnaire. We'll review everything you submitted, and we'll get back to you if we're missing something, right? So that's an email to get, or a chat message, which is, the advantage of chats is they're secure. You can let the client know the updates by using automation, but the actual workflow and the statuses, they won't just have a full picture of it, unless you of course keep them in the loop and send them status updates, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. A little bit later on, we'll talk about the rules of engagement, like what makes it move to the next stage automatically, right? We haven't really talked about automation as in the form of how do I make it move automatically from one stage to another without, you know, me doing something specific. So, a kind of like halfway question to that same answer to that same question: can the client move this from one stage to another? They can't visualize this or move it, but let's say they sign a document. Once they submit a signature, if that's the only action in the stage, it will move to the next stage automatically. So we'll talk a little bit more about that so we have clarity on that. I know we've covered a whole bunch of things and it might be a lot for some of you, for you advanced users. You might know everything that, everybody just talked about, but in simpler terms, no, they can't see any of this. You actually, as a firm, have full control of what your client sees. So that's, I think, one of the best parts, right, Russ? That you have like
Yeah,
complete
I
control of
mean,
that.
you hinted at it, but yeah, in that like that intake stage, um, there are automations. That's the beauty of the program. That if the client completes the organizer and signs the engagement letter, um, the program's automatically probably going to move you from intake to review documents. So technically speaking, the client is controlling moving between phases, but they don't see that they're doing that. They don't
Yeah.
see this job. But yeah, I guess technically the client is moving the job between the phases, but which is the automation, but they don't see it.
Yeah.
So they don't know they're doing that. And so yeah, throughout the process, there's a few times in here that maybe in the e-signature stage that when they e-sign their 8879, that might also move it in a stage. When they pay an invoice, that could potentially move it if you've got your automation set up that way. So there are going to be some times where they provide missing information. If you've got that link to a client request, that could move you between do an auto move. So each of these stages, as we're going through this, will show you that there's potential to have auto moves between these stages in your jobs. That's pretty neat. That the pipelines will let you do.
Exactly. And so just on the same note, right? I like how Marion put in the Q&A here. He was asking if a client task could trigger that auto move. Now the beauty of this is you're in control of it. You decide when that happens, right?
Yeah.
So you can predetermine a certain client action that will trigger the job to progress. So if I am here, for example, missing information from a client, right? I can click the job and I can request client information. I can send him a client request for missing documents. Don't worry, we'll talk more about these functionalities later, but I can assign him a task essentially. And when the client completes a task, this could just move automatically and assign a task or a team leader, telling them that they need to review what the client just submitted, right? So you control it, right? You just pre-program when those movements happen. But yes, totally, the clients can some of the actions that they complete, they can trigger those movements to happen. All right. Now, let's continue with this structure of this pipeline. So we added, guys, a stage for basically in prep. And I think here is where we're actually, if you click the lightning bolt on this, on the in prep stage, here's the first status update that gets sent to the client. So when you or your team or the automation makes those jobs go into the in prep stage, the automation that we pre-programmed here is actually it will send an email to the client saying, "Hey, Edgar, we can confirm we received everything we need to prepare your return. We will get right on it, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible." Right? So the client's getting that status update in the form of an email. This is not your only option for sending those status updates to the client. You can send them in the form of a chat, which is, of course, our preferred method because they're secure. And you can also update. We're going to show the client perspective in a couple of seconds, but you can make the status be available on the client portal. Again, we'll show the client perspective in a couple of seconds, but the goal here is in within some of your stages, some of the statuses, it might make a lot of sense to just keep the client in the loop. But us as consumers, I know I like just I really like it when I do something for a business. Like I give you my documents, and then I get a response, even if it's automated. I get a response saying, "Edgar, thank you. We'll review what you brought us or what you've given us, and then we'll get back to you soon." That will potentially save you a phone call or a unnecessary email or text from a client. Pavel, do we have any questions in the Q&A before we continue?
Um, I have a question here, and it was kind of repeated. Do you recommend combining pipelines, like let's say a 1040 with a, which is an individual, right? Individual with corporate tax returns. Is that something that's recommended, or is it recommended to have separate pipelines for those?
So I personally, I think I agree with what Ross said before. Any really both ways of doing it will work just fine. I have just recently, I think from a year from now, I started actually promoting the combined type of approach, because we had that's more or less when we released a reporting tool, which allowed us to look at just one set of data, for example, the whole pipeline with 500 or 1,000 jobs in it, and I can use that data to build customized reporting, which, don't worry guys, we'll talk more about tomorrow. Okay, but to make that reporting a lot easier, I started just kind of promoting the idea of combining pipelines, because it makes building those reports way easier. Just kind of looking at the whole data set, all I did kind of in a single dashboard, right?
Yeah.
But essentially both structures will work just fine.
Yeah, when we set up our pipeline structure, it was before the Alpha project, which the Alpha project really improved the sorting and the filtering and what you could do in the job lists and the account lists and the so with what you can now do in the filtering and job sorting, you can absolutely use a combined pipeline and for your entities and achieve it. But I think when we set up, I think it was much easier to use separate pipelines. But I think now for the last year that you can now definitely use a combined pipeline. We just haven't done it because we've got a lot of variables in our pipelines, and it's just going to take me a little bit of time to rewrite all those variables into our main pipeline. But that being said, I think there's some things coming down the pike that's going to make me that is going to make me have to do some work in the pipelines anyway. So I think we're going to do it. So I think there's some new features coming. So we're probably going to go to a combined pipeline. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. So let's just continue with the kind of reviewing the structure of this process, guys, and we'll finally just end it with Fabiola also walking us through how you can add more clients or do your own testing. Now, if you haven't done it yet, we'll review the structure of this process. If you haven't done so yet, like Russ said a few minutes ago, go ahead and create a dummy client for your own personal testing or for testing things with your team, right? If you haven't done that yet, go ahead and create a new account. Make sure you have that ready, because in a few minutes, Fabiola is going to show us how you can test the pipeline, how you can add the job, and then just use it for testing purposes. Now, after prep is complete, which we complete by marking a task as done or as complete as well. So internally, right, when you get assigned a to-do item, like in a task list, here, I'm gonna go to the task list real quick. Essentially, a task also in the on a list or anywhere in the software, if when somebody completes it, that could also potentially trigger the auto move. So if something's sitting in prep, if your preparers looking at their task list or their jobs list, they complete a task, they might not just see it on the same screen, but in the back end, a job could be moving from one stage to the other. And again, when those movements happen, when a job enters, every time a job enters a new stage, there is potential to automate more. So if the prep is done, we may want to assign a task to a reviewer, right? So here's what we're doing here. We're creating a task for a reviewer, okay? The reviewer's getting notified, and then reviewer does her thing, right? Everything's reviewed. And then we have a stage for sharing the the a draft or a kind of a draft of the return and invoice with the client, where the invoice will then trigger the next auto move and send the client to signature, where we have to prepare the document for the signature. They get a status update as well. So here's another nice status update opportunity where you can let the client know, hey, client, thank you for making the payment, right? You're about to get a signature request from us. Please sign it, and it will e-file, so you can set expectations. You can let them know everything that's coming. And again, it's just, as a consumer, it's just nice when you acknowledge all the things the clients have done, just to keep them in the loop. So that gets done. The client's signature itself. So the document that you guys upload or print from your tax software into TaxDome, that will then also trigger the next movement. So I can link a document while the client is sitting in signature, right? I can print from my tax software. I can upload through the web portal, but in the end, I can make that document a part of the job, and I can create that dependency so that the job stays here in the signature stage until the client signs it, which is what I think. I think at this point, every one of us wants to do this, right? You want to keep the client in a specific status. Some people do a signature plus invoice all at the same time. Some do just signature. But regardless of that, you want to keep that client there until they complete those steps, right? Whether it is a signature only or the payment, keep them there to have it clear on the reporting when they paid, who hasn't, and who needs to be e-filed. So in this pipeline specifically, the jobs move when the client signs, and they move to transmit e-file, where a task gets assigned to somebody in our team, so they can transmit the return to the IRS. And when that transmission is done, the client moves again to e-file transmitted, where perhaps we can send another status update or assign a task to our team to let the client know, call the client, send us a personalized, nice email, etc. And of course, I always recommend having like a completed or finalized stage, because when a job is completed, when it goes from the beginning to the end, you may want to keep it there for a moment just to understand how many jobs you've completed within a certain time frame. But in the end, you will end up archiving the jobs and just making those disappear from the pipeline, because there's gonna be a new tax season later. So you may want to keep them there for a couple of maybe a couple of weeks, but then you will need to archive the jobs, so they still remain in the system, but they're just on a separate list. They're in the archive, and you'll always have access to that, but they're not active jobs. They will not just be in the pipeline itself as active. Fabiola, do we have any questions that we need to address here?
So yeah, like I mentioned, there's like a million questions, but I want to hyper focus on some of the questions there. And one of the things that you touched upon right now is, doing the archiving, right? Right when you hit the last stage. And somebody asks, is there a way to automate that so it can archive automatically? Is that something possible?
That is a good question. Now, right now, we do not have the option to automatically archive the jobs. And to be quite, frank with you, I don't think you should automatically archive things. I see it more of a step in which you have to just, somebody has to determine whether the job is complete or not. If you do it automatically, I think that opens room for perhaps, I don't know, maybe there was some correction needed, or some additional work that it needed to get done. I don't think you want that work to just disappear from your pipeline automatically. But I think our intention, and correct me here, Q&A team, if I'm wrong, I think our intention is to have that at some point. Either way, guys, once your jobs hit that final stage, you can archive them in mass. This takes here, if I click the box here on the top, that will select all the jobs that are in the final stage, and I can just archive them in mass. So it will take us about 2-3 clicks, and it will just kind of I guess give you some peace of mind that you actually acknowledge the number of jobs that you were archiving. I mean, you need that number to make sense. Russ, do you have any best practices here? What do you do when jobs are completed?
I agree. I think having them in that final column where you can kind of see that number that you've completed is nice. That was one of the things in our old software. They would just disappear when you would complete that last task on it. So then it was a little bit more cumbersome to go figure out how many returns you've already completed. You could do it, but it wasn't as easy here. It's pretty easy to see the exact number that you've completed. So, and it's pretty easy to just hit like you did. You can hit select all and hit archive. So I'm fine with the way it is.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pavel. I think we can go back to the slides really quick, and we can wrap up today's webinar with just a quick overview of how you can add jobs to a pipeline and how you can use job templates as well.
Yep, that's right. We can definitely do that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. I think you can see it now, hopefully. All right. So let's go ahead and open up that pipeline that we were working on, right? So the view that you were looking at, because I think at this point, if for those of you that are brand new, you're like, why are there two views? There's a workflow view. Okay. So when you open it up, there's this view, this beautiful view of, all of the stages as Edgar was flowing through. And then there's another view that when you click on edit, it'll take you to templates and it'll take you to a whole different view, right? And a lot of people in the audience were like, how do you make these changes, right? Because we could see that there's actions happening with the lightning bolt, but how do you change this? Well, this is the meat and bones of the pipeline, guys, when you hit edit, right? So I'm going to come back here for a brief moment and show you how to add a job. So I'm going to delete this job if you don't mind, Edgar, and then we can bring it over. I'm just going to delete it because it's just a test job. We're going to create a brand new job in a second. So if I click on add job, this form is going to pop up. Okay, so this form is going to pop up and you need to fill all of these fields out, right? That's what you need to do every single time. We probably don't want to do that every single time. I want this to be filled out automatically for the 1040 or a tax preparation pipeline. I want it to be auto-filled for me every single time. So how do we do that? We are actually going to go to templates, firm templates. Then I'm going to go to jobs. What is a job template? A job template allows you to fill out that job form exactly how you want it to fill out. So notice that we have a couple of examples here, but I'm going to create my very own template. So I'll call this tax return. And the job name, this is where Russ was talking about earlier. Russ adds his account names in here and also the year and what it's about. So if you haven't used short codes before, and this is the first time you're seeing this, short codes are something that you can call upon the account. So if I say account name short code, when I add a job using this template, it's going to automatically fill in my client's account number. Does that make sense? Account name, I'm sorry.
So ours would be a formula that would say the current year formula, then 1040, then dash, and then account name. That's our convention. Okay, and we're using 1040 because we want to keep it short because the account name, of course, lengthens it. And we're trying to keep our names in such to keep our columns condensed. So we don't want to say tax return. We know 1040 is
Right.
tax return. So this keeps our list. That gets us our year. And typically we're adding, we're going to add the job. Like I'm going to, add the 2024 tax return. I'm going to add it for this year. I'm going to add it right now. So I might have to change this job template, but that's how we're going to do it. You might want to just put in 2024, but that's how we do it.
Right. And as a standard, if you're
You,
doing like
yeah. So
go ahead.
everybody might do it a little bit differently here. You might actually put in a year, but you're going to have to just address that, what formula you're going to use here in your setup.
Yes, exactly. Because you can have a template for like this is going to say last year. So when January hits, this will
That's right.
autofill to 2024.
Yeah.
And
See,
I
and
have
we've already got all of our prior years set up. So we need our template to say current year because we're currently, our jobs are getting ready, or our jobs have already now rolled over. So they needed the formula to say current year.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. There you go.
exactly.
And if you have a client who you do need to follow the whole process, but for 2022, you'll create a job template and call it 2022, and you could probably just say 2022. And then create another job template for 2021. So that way you can keep track of the ones that are for past years, right? In this case, I'm making a template because I want to use this template for January. So I'm going to say last year so it shows up as 2024 for me. And 1040 dash account name, perfect. That's going to fill in the information for me. And that way, when I filter, I will be easily finding the information that I need. All right, so now that you have that cleared, the assignee. As a standard practice, I advise to leave this blank because if you have a big team, the job will be assigned to anybody in the team, right? So you might have jobs that maybe one person in the team always takes care of the 2022 returns. That person's going to be always doing the same thing, right? And it might be Edgar. You can do that, but again, I highly suggest you leave this blank because when you create the job, that's when you determine who to assign it to, right? Russ, do you actually have any job templates that you assign predetermined assignee, or do you also leave this blank?
We leave it blank.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you have a 15 plus staff number of people, right? So it just might be for anybody, and it just
Well,
depends on who it
our
is.
first phase in the job, we have conditionals that set the assignee on the job. So
Perfect.
we'll handle it there, and we've got tagging in the client that's going to set the person, going to set the partner and the
Absolutely.
tab.
Yeah. Once everybody gets a better understanding on tags, you can automate something to be assigned to somebody in here automatically.
Yes,
So that's
that's
a
the
little bit,
advanced part.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
advanced
the
part. I
advanced
don't want
part.
to
Yeah.
confuse anybody, but Russ is pretty advanced here. So he has amazing tips and tricks for us a little bit later on. All right, the next section is budget. You can add budget, like if you're always allotting like 10 hours maybe to complete this job, then you can add it on here. If you're not doing budgeting right now, you can leave it blank. We are evolving this feature to have your employees have allotted time and budgeted time to complete items. That's why we have time entries up here
Yeah.
so that your team members will be able to well, so let's say that I am allotting about 10 hours here and your team members could start tracking their
Yeah,
time.
I would recommend just put what your most standard 1040 is. Like
Yeah,
what do you think your most standard time on your 1040 is? I think for us, I put 3 hours on ours, so that's probably I guess around the standard. I
yeah,
hope
exactly. And this
that
is
makes sense.
again
three to
relatively
three to
new.
five, I guess.
Yeah, I think with time, right? you will be able to measure this out right in your own practice, because you might have a big team, a small team. It just depends on that. But this is relatively a new feature that we've added. So please feel free to play around with this. I use the reporting to be able to review, how long does it take for me to finish a 1040, right? Sometimes clients take a long time to get me stuff. Sometimes they don't. So I think it always depends on that. The priority, if you want to do like low for every single job, and then later on, if it changes, you can manually change it to urgent or change it to high priority. You can start it off at low. And in this description, I suggest you leave it blank, because here you probably will add notes a little bit later on according to the client. If you want to bring in certain short codes, maybe the client ID number or the IEN, so it can automatically appear here every single time, then by all means. Remember, we created these custom fields for a reason, so you can bring over the information if you need it. There could be a custom field called, last year's tax fees, and you can bring over the fee that you had, that you charged your client last year, and you can have it automatically pop up in here. So those are amazing to use in case you want to use short codes. Generally, you leave this blank so you can add your notes later. Now, remember, we're creating a standard process. So what does this mean? That you're standardizing how long it takes for you to do things. So if you want to do something like, in moment zero that I create this job, I want it to be done within 15 days. Therefore, the system will generate a due date for you after the job starts. That's an option, right? Standardizing, your process. But if you want to use an absolute date, you can. You can say, 2015, April 15th is going to be my due date for any of the 1040s that I create. You could do that as well. That's another option. So either or, it's up to you how you want to generate that. But Russ, give me a feedback on this, because I always suggest both. It really depends on how each person works. But do you do absolute dates, or do you do like a standard?
Well, for 1040, I do, absolute, April 15th, or, whatever the due date is going to be on the
Of
return.
that year, right?
Yeah, for that year. And then, and then the
And then
start
you'll
date.
manually change it, right? If they go on an extension.
That's right.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's everybody. You guys can.
So for us, we update this, we update this each year. And so, this is something that, we update this job, for our tax jobs each year, or we duplicate and, add a new, job for
Right.
each 1040.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, everybody, this is just a template. You'll be using this template over and over and over and over again. Once you hit December of 2025, you want to come in here and change this to 2026 so that your next absolute date is next year, right? So that's what you're going to want to do, and then hit save and exit. You want to do that probably in December. All right, so looking at the right side, a client-facing status, we want to turn that on if we want our clients to have a status view. And we might not get to that view today because we're running out of time, but notice that this title went over to this side. We probably want to change this maybe a little bit because the client might not be familiar with 1040. You could say something like tax return. And that way your client can see, this information clearly. So your client will be able to see this information as a status. They won't get a notification. They won't get an email. It's just a status. The client-facing status is kind of like when you order food on one of your phone apps. The first status is your food's being prepared. Status number two, your food's being delivered, right? It's on its way. This is the same concept that we're using with client-facing statuses. And Edgar kind of mentioned that earlier of how that can change from stage to stage. But right now, as a standard, I'm saying whoever is added as a job, I want them to have a planned status. That's it. Stage 1, plan status. And I'll probably change the verbiage here to tax return because it said job.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of just change that up a bit because maybe this is bookkeeping. I'll change this to bookkeeping. But this is up to you. Okay, you can change this verbiage as you wish. It doesn't have to be this. You can be as formal or as casual as you want with your clients. And we have a lot of statuses here. You can choose a new one if you don't see one that you like, because TaxDome is always super flexible in tailoring everything to adhere to your process, right? So this is it. This is my template, right? I have my due date. I have my client-facing status. I have the title that I want. I'm going to click Save and Exit. Now I'm going to go back to my pipeline. I'm just going to quickly create a job
Right.
using
Just
that form.
just show how to use a template, and wrap up, guys, in a couple of seconds. And tomorrow we'll continue with adding, basically walking through the entire process with a client, with a sample client, and then showing you both the firm and client perspective when that happens.
And Fabiola, because the formula says last year, when you do add it, it's going to say 2023, not 2024.
Yeah, it will say 2023 because last year is last year, right?
Yeah.
But this pipeline, this template, I'm building it
We're
for
building it
next
for January. Yeah, I know.
yeah, but I think for short codes, it's literally what it is. So
Yeah,
nobody gets confused, right?
you and everybody's got to be. You've got to teach your staff when they add jobs. They've got to be cognizant of the formulas, and you've got to be consistent in your formulas in all your jobs. So when you're using those conditionals, so that they understand those formulas, and then also when you set up your reoccurrences, they're going to be using those same formulas. So you've got to make sure you update those formulas each year, or else you're going to have. And there's right now not an easy way to update if you do misname a year in there. There's not an easy way to go back and fix those years and get that right. So when you do use years in your name, in your job names, or in your task names, and you didn't get your formula right, then it's not an easy fix.
Right. You just want to make sure that you title this correctly, whether it's manually or you're using a shortcode.
Yeah,
Either way, you just want to make sure it's the right thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we choose a client here. We're saying that we want it to go to this pipeline because I'm already in the pipeline. And then I chose the template because of the many templates. I'm choosing the one I want, and that's it. Everything filled out for me. I don't have to do much else but make sure that this is assigned to Edgar because he's the one that has to do this, right? So all I have to do is click add. And then the system will say, hey, there's a whole bunch of things that are going to happen in stage 1. Do you want them to happen? And if I don't want them to happen, I can uncheck them because maybe this is a paper-based client or something that doesn't really need to sign all this digital stuff. You can uncheck it. And I just want them to sit in stage 1. But maybe I really do want everything to happen, right? And I'm like, yes, I do want everything to happen. Let's move them over. It'll create the job, pop up the job itself, and you can see that this is what I filled out. And on the right side is anything that's pending. I can go ahead and close this out, and I can visualize the job card here, right? So if I open up the job one more time and say I did use the wrong title, I did use the wrong short code, hey, nothing's going to happen. I'm just going to change it. This is for 2022 because I'm backtracking, right? This is for 2023. This is for 2024. Save and exit, and that title of the job will change. So it's kind of like easy to do, but when you do it in bulk, like Russ said, it's kind of difficult to go back and like change everybody one by one, but on a one-off basis, it is easy to do.
Yeah, very, very easy on a one-off. Just it's before you, if you've got like 200 reoccurrences or 500 reoccurrences getting ready to happen, Now that being said, if you did, it's pretty easy. Thankfully, with bulk actions, you can easily delete 500 jobs that just reoccurred, fix your template, and then let them reoccur again, which is one of the reasons in our case why we always have a holding phase in all of our jobs, a holding stage, just in case we have to delete a job and make it reoccur again. We always have a hold phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to have backtracking and plan Bs, right, for
Yeah.
everything.
And we did in our old system too. We always had just a kind of a receive information and receive info from client and assign work. We kind of it was always waiting, kind of waiting to start type of thing. So it's really kind of the same thing.
Right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. We talked a lot about many, many things, right? We'll have more clarity in the next 2 webinars, just so you have a better understanding of how to edit the actual pipeline. What are the rules for the auto move? And our amazing team of Edgar and Russ will be joining you. I won't be in the next webinars, but it was a pleasure to work with you today. We covered really great things. We cover risk discussions of like, why is it important to use TaxDome versus something else? Some of the terminology that's super important. How to copy pipelines from the free library or even the store, the marketplace, customizing some of the pipelines. How easy is it to change what happens in stage to stage? It was a really good discussion, and you'll get hands-on training tomorrow. And adding a job. How to add a job? We just did that. Super simple to do. Job templates are really, really nice and important to create. And I hope you got a lot from today's session. Again, it was a pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Please join the next 2 sessions for this week. And I hope you have a good holiday season, everyone.
Thank you, Fabiola.
Thank you, Fabiola. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.